for the device. Now the attributes for the device are project specific, or so they have information in here that is specific to how this device is being used in the project. Some of these are just technical points, like calling out the rating or type, or they are attributes like BOM, no BOM, where we want to exclude a device from a bill of materials, and that's tied to a script, like report generator. Other ones you'll see are just like things like power loss, locations, technical descriptions. So anything that you want to add as technical information for that component to the project. If it's a fixed attribute, like something from the spec sheet, then it belongs to the component tab, and it belongs to the part that will not change, right? The description from the spec sheet is tied to the component, and it's not able to be modified in the project. The link to the data sheet, this hyperlink attribute will allow us to things like open up the spec sheet for that component. Connection properties are attributes, have attributes that are related to the signal or the wire. Things like if we need to add an additional length, what the function of that wire is, maximum temperature rating, and some of these are related to scripts. Like this is a Sabre parameter is for an ERP system integration, where you want to merge with a PLM or ERP, and so these are all specific. The thing that ties the attributes to these different windows or these different tabs is their owners, and that's what we'll talk about in Database Editor today. Each attribute has an owner. If we look at our sheet properties, all of these attributes are owned by a sheet. Device properties are owned by devices. Component properties or component attributes are owned by components. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, so it will make more sense. The question was, how do you access the hyperlink? So if you have a part that has a hyperlink in your database, let's see, in this case, it's this contactor relay. I can right click on it, and in the context menu, you have a open hyperlink. So if you wanted to, in your database editor, add a link to a product page or a spec sheet, you can do that. So it's open hyperlink. If there isn't a hyperlink attribute, then it won't appear for that component. Other question was how to reposition text. So if I come in here and I want to move this text, typically when it's brought in locked to that symbol. So if we right click and go to our text properties, we can unlock that text. And if we need to, then we can move it around on our grid. The other option here is if it is locked and we want to move it without going to our context menu, we can hold F and move it. we can write, we can move this. We can also rotate it. We need to by selecting R. Okay. Are you only able to edit text in the Sheets tab? So the Sheets tab would be over here. If we wanted to make a change to how it was displayed for all of the symbols here, what we could do is right click and jump to the symbol in our database, right click and edit. And then from here, if we wanted to make any changes, we could say, want this to be smaller or larger text, make it smaller. And we could right click and save it to the database. And then by right clicking on that symbol in our project, we can update it in the project. Modify it that way. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. If you want to change your defaults, we can go to graphic text, and in here you can define what you want your default text to be for your project. You can change the size as default, and then that is what's going to adjust this taskbar at the bottom of my screen. Okay. So just want to talk through the last piece of schematic that we did not get to finish yesterday. Share my screen. So NA Standards is a tool that you could use to rename devices and wires based on the NA standards or a ladder or row position. We can also exclude devices from the renaming if we choose to by adding and selecting a fixed item designation option. We can rename terminals to PLC addresses in NA using NA standards, and we can rename terminals to wire numbers as well. The wires are not required necessarily for the naming. The attributes can be on, you can use attributes on the logic line, but in most cases we're going to see the need to use it with the wire. So I have this example here, which just kind of is a nice clear demonstration of the NA standards piece. device renaming, it's just something that will be enabled so that you don't accidentally hit the button that runs the script and rename your devices. So you have to have device name trigger enabled to rename your devices. And we'll go ahead and just rename the game. We go to our settings. You will see this, there are two tabs on the left-hand side. One is for device naming and the other is for wire numbering. So for device naming, we can align our device letter code attribute. So we just want to decide what our convention is for device naming. So in this case, we can use device letter code, and then we can add sheet name and grid ladder position. We can also then move these up and down as needed. Now this is also dependent on the structure of the sheet setup itself. So we need to have rows that correspond with the grid ladder position. In this case, the sheet I'm using has rows set up as row 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. We can choose the increment. So if we have multiple devices on the same row, it will either use a numeric distinction or an alphabetical distinction. So we have two contactors. The first one might be 201A. The second one would be R201B. So the master symbol select is based on if you have multiple, if you have a contact relay that has a symbol on multiple sheets, we want to decide which one of those is the master symbol. So if you have a coil on, and it's the first symbol paired with the model in the database editor, then that would be the default master symbol. So if that's on sheet 101, then that relay would be R101. If we had the contacts for that contactor on sheet 2 and 3, they would still show up as R101. We can also opt to change it to the largest symbol or the most detailed symbol in our part in the database editor. And then we obviously can choose a omit device attribute. So if there is a component or a device that you do not want to have this naming applied to, you can use the fixed item designation attribute, turn it on, and then it will omit that device. You can opt to rename terminals to PLC addresses. You can opt to rename terminals to wire numbers, and you can ask for a required contact arrangement. The last final piece is what you want to choose as a separator. So if you want to put a space between device letter code and sheet name and grid ladder position, you can choose the separator that you want. We'll make this a dot. We'll add in the separator, and I'll go ahead and put it between the device letter code and the sheet name grid ladder position. Save our settings. Make sure that this is enabled, and then we can update all devices. So it's going to name this power supply dot is our separator, 200A. This relay is now R dot 300A, A dot 202A. Why am I getting 300A? Oh, because of my, that's why, okay. Okay. So you can see these devices on the right here, K.202A, K.203A, 204, and so on and so on, right? The reason that these show up as R300A is because if we go to sheet 3 and look at row 00, this is the master contact device. So because this is the master symbol and it's on 300, then all of the contactors corresponding to it share that as well. So updating the wires, going to the wire side. Oh, actually, let me do this. So let's say that we want to fix an item designation. We can turn this on. So you would come, if you wanted to add this, you just come in and add fix item designation from your attribute list. This is a yes or no. Do we want to fix the item designation? Checkbox means yes, unchecked means no. Hit OK, run our script again. All right, I'll take a look at that. The newest version of NA standard, so I may need to find. The other one is wire numbering. Same thing applies here, where you have a choice of the wire marker you want to use for